The first drink started to have some effect on me, and I just thought, wow, these are really strong drinks. It wasn't until the second drink, and it was already too late, that I realized that there was something wrong with the drinks. Sadly, Sean Combs was waiting in the wings. He was watching from some sort of vantage point, and once I was in a helpless position and he was sure that he was in a position of power, then he took advantage of the situation.
Violation I have experienced during has had lasting effects on my body, causing ongoing health problems and complications. The combination of physical and emotional pain has created a cycle of suffering from which it is so hard to break free.
Before his arrest, disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Combs was famous for holding his annual 4th of July party in the Hamptons. All of the well-known partygoers wore white, and it wasn't exactly a family-friendly event. Now imagine you're a 6-year-old kid and you find yourself a guest there. Allison Hall has more.
The new allegations against P. Diddy are fueling an already heated conversation about his actions within the music industry, with more individuals coming forward, including a male accuser claiming to have been drugged and assaulted. These revelations are shedding light on a disturbing pattern of abuse and manipulation. The growing number of testimonies is raising serious questions about Diddy's influence and the darker side of the industry.
According to your lawsuit, you were hired by a security firm to work security at one of the infamous white parties that was thrown by Sean Combs in the Hamptons. What was that experience like?
At first, he was incredibly friendly, very gracious.
So you had a friendly chat, and then according to your lawsuit, at some point later in the night, Sean Combs himself offered you a drink. This didn't come from staff or someone holding a tray of drinks, it came from him directly.
Correct. The first drink started to have some effect on me, and I just thought, wow, these are really strong drinks. It wasn't until the second drink, and it was already too late, that I realized that there was something wrong with the drinks. Sadly, Sean Combs was waiting in the wings. He was watching from some sort of vantage point. And once I was in a helpless position and he was sure that he was in a position of power, then he took advantage of the situation.
You allege that you were forcibly pushed into an SUV by Sean Combs. That act alone, according to your lawsuit, left you in considerable pain. And then once inside the vehicle, your lawsuit says plaintiff was held down by Combs, who overpowered him while he struggled to escape due to the effects of the drugs in his system. And it goes on to say that he you.
I was screaming. I was telling him to stop. It was incredibly painful. And he was acting like it was nothing. And he seemed to be disconnected from it. It was beyond belief.
Because I'm sure people is going to want me to ask you, you being around Puffy, is there any truth to him being fruity?
I don't know what you mean by really, do I see this man being fruity? Does a man like other men? I think he's brother love. He love other men. Bruh, I can say this, and I'm gonna leave it at that when I say it. And this is not something that, you know, really interests me. It might interest the viewers and everything like that, you know, but they live this weird rock and roll lifestyle where they touchy-feely with each other. And all I could say in situations like that is that if two men lay down, how many fruity men get up?
Diddy, thanks for agreeing to do this interview. I know it's a really tough time for you right now, but we really appreciate your time.
Let's do it.
Now, Puff, P. Diddy, how do you want me to refer to you?
You can call me Love.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room, all the allegations. Are you attracted to men or women?
It depends on my mood, my vibe.
Is it true that you've had with Meek Mill?
I can't tell you that.
Thalia Graves, another accuser, shared that Diddy took advantage of her during a difficult time in her life, when she was dealing with a divorce and mental health issues.
New alleged victim of Sean Combs has filed a lawsuit against the hip-hop mogul. Thalia Graves alleges Combs drugged in New York City in 2001 and says the was filmed. She talked about the effects of the alleged she says she endured while she knew Sean Combs and his associates. Thalia Graves becomes emotional while sharing her story with her attorney, Gloria Allred, beside her.
The trauma of the has taken a toll on my mental health. I've had PTSD, depression, and anxiety. I'm emotionally scarred. It has been hard for me to trust others, to form healthy relationships.
Combs is currently in custody in New York City after being arrested and indicted on trafficking, kidnapping, and racketeering charges.
My family issues made the pain even worse. I was already going through a divorce at the time of the and did not get the support that I needed. I was also faced with disbelief and judgment. This has put a strain on my selection of men and relationships. But many relationships became aggressive, and which has made me feel even more alone in my struggle. I go through spells of being distant and withdrawn that it's sometimes so hard to leave my house. The trauma of it has taken a toll on my mental health. I've had PTSD, depression, and anxiety. I'm emotionally scarred. It has been hard for me to trust others, to form healthy relationships, or even feel safe in my own skin. Flashbacks, nightmares, and intrusive thoughts make me feel like it's a constant struggle. I also suffer with physical problems such as chronic pain, discomfort. The violation I have experienced during the has had lasting effects on my body, causing ongoing health problems and complications. The combination of physical and emotional pain has created a cycle of suffering from which it is so hard to break free. I want to continue on this journey towards recovery and healing. I'm glad that he is locked up, but that's a temporary feeling of relief.
Thalia is not going to be taking any questions.
What happened to Danity Kane? Why did the band break up?
I wasn't willing to do what was expected of me, not talent-wise, but in other areas. At the very end, he fired me. With Diddy, though, I saw multiple real sides of him, but I don't know who I was ever talking to that was sober. There was always an element of something going on.
Were you surprised by the number of people who have come out and spoken against Diddy? Or
no, I'm surprised at the number of people that still haven't. Being a part of what he created for the people in moments and times that we all experienced him. I still see how deeply it lives in so many of us.
This month, she posted on X after his arrest, quote, "The purpose of justice is to provide an ending and allow us the space to create a new chapter. Women never get this. I feel validated. Today is a win for all women all over the world, not just me. Things are finally changing."
A new accuser in the Diddy and Jay-Z lawsuit has come forward, revealing she was just 13 years old at the time of the alleged incident during the 2000 VMAs. Now, 24 years later, she is bravely sharing her traumatic experience.
You should always advocate for yourself and be a voice for yourself. You should never let what somebody else did run your life.
A 38-year-old mother from Alabama who has filed a lawsuit accusing Sean Diddy Combs and Jay-Z of her when she was 13 years old is speaking out to NBC News for the first time. She asked us not to reveal her identity.
What made you want to come forward and talk today?
Because I think that I've been quiet long enough about what I've been through, and it's been hard enough to be quiet. But it's a chapter of my life that I'd like to close.
An NBC News review of her account found inconsistencies with her allegations. She says that she went to the MTV Video Music Awards in 2000 to catch a glimpse of her favorite celebrities.
You weren't scared to be all alone?
No, with having autism is like feeling like you live your life in a shatterproof rubber ball. The world's on fire. The fire is inside the ball with you, but there's no way for you to get out.
In addition to having autism, the woman says she suffered a head injury. The night of the 2000s VMAs, she says a friend drove her from Rochester, New York to Manhattan, a more than 5-hour drive. Her attorney provided NBC News with the name of the friend who has since died. The woman says she spoke to Combs' limo driver, who offered her a ride to an after party.
I stumbled upon Diddy's driver, who told me that I was exactly what Diddy was looking for.
What did you think when he said that to you?
I thought it meant that I was just pretty.
She went to a White House, she says, where she spoke to musicians Benji Madden and his brother.
I'm talking to Benji Madden about his tattoo because, I have about his tattoo that's the Last Supper, because I have a religious background. So it was just something to talk about.
In a statement to NBC News, a representative of the Maddens confirmed that they did not attend the 2000 VMAs and that they were on tour in the Midwest at the time. At the after party, she says she had a drink that made her feel woozy. Then she says Combs and Carter took turns her while a female celebrity watched.
JC comes in and me. He at that point I was fighting, trying to get away from him, and he put his hand over my mouth and told me to stop it, cut the.
After the alleged, she says she ran to a gas station where she called her father, who picked her up and drove her home.
We rode home in silence. He didn't ask me what happened. He didn't ask me what I did or where I was.
In an interview with NBC News, her father said he could not verify the claims. Quote, "I felt like I would remember that, and I don't. I have a lot going on, but that's something that would definitely stick in my mind," he said. When we asked the woman about the contradictions in a phone interview on Friday, she said that she stands by her statements. "I have made some mistakes," she said. "Honestly, what is the clearest is what happened to me." The inconsistencies in her account of an incident alleged to have happened 24 years ago does not necessarily mean the allegations are false. The accuser's attorney, Tony Busby, said, "Because we have interrogated her intensely, she has even agreed to submit to a polygraph. This has been extremely distressing for her, to the point she has experienced seizures and had to seek medical treatment due to the stress." In a statement to NBC News, Sean Carter said, "This incident didn't happen, and yet he filed it in court and doubled down in the press. True justice is coming. We fight from victory, not for victory."
Is any part of you scared coming out against such powerful people?
Yeah, I'm scared of what could happen, but I'm more afraid of letting it eat me alive from the inside out than I am of, being chastised by their fans.
Attendees of Diddy's infamous parties are speaking out, describing wild gatherings with no age restrictions where drugs were freely available. These events created an environment of intoxication and exploitation, affecting guests of all ages and genders.
The booze and drug-fueled freak-offs at the center of the case against Diddy. New reports today claim he spent up to $500,000 per event, which included the mainstream part.
Hey, yo, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Diddy.
And for the lurid after-party, even having hundreds of mirrors mounted on the walls and ceilings at one event, everywhere you looked was said the party planner who spoke to Page 6.
I was at I believe to be one of P. Diddy's freak-offs.
Now, singer-songwriter Tania Wallace told TMZ's Harvey Levin for the Tubi special, The Downfall of Diddy, Inside the Freak-Offs. She believes she witnessed underage victims at one of Diddy's 2018 parties.
I'm looking like, are those midgets? Because people were it's people over them, it's people trying to hide what they're doing.
Adults who are little people, or are you talking about minors?
Am I gonna get in trouble? I don't want to say I witnessed any of that crazy stuff, but we all have common sense. Little people. It's not supposed to be there.
You're talking about underage people.
It's a shame.
Is this woman, Tania, is she really saying that there were minors involved in these freak-offs?
That is exactly what she's saying, Billy. Now, as for what they were doing, she never really could get a clean look at it. She said there was a wall of adults encircling them who clearly didn't want everyone at the party to see what was happening there. She said when she saw this scene with the younger people, that it was about 7 a.m. and that the party had been going all night.
Did anyone ask her why didn't she leave, and what was she doing?
She was there as the guest of a Saudi prince. As to why she didn't leave, I don't know what time she left. I agree with you that once you see something like she's describing, that's the time to tip out the door.
Or call the FBI.
Or call the FBI, exactly. But, that's the other thing that we've heard from a lot of people who've been involved in parties with Diddy, that there are NDAs that are signed, and you walk out and you feel like, I can't say anything to anyone.
Today, Diddy's lawyer calls Tania's claims completely and categorically false. In brand new court documents, he insists the government has been leaking information suggesting falsely that he engaged in wrongdoing with underage victims, insisting there are none.
And you believe this 6-year-old boy was once a guest at Diddy's infamous white party? The disgraced mogul has his arm draped around a young Justin Liptowski back in 1999. Justin is now 31 and tells Inside Edition about taking that photo.
He put his arm around me in an uncomfortable way, close to areas that you shouldn't as a grown man.
He recalls what he saw at the party.
So I remember marijuana and topless women. That's the two main things that I remember.
So, how'd he end up there? Well, his father, David Allen, was Diddy's photographer, snapping pictures of partygoers in the Hamptons. Justin's mom, Maya, was also there. She says the party was family-friendly at first, but then turned raunchy.
People were getting high. There were girls swimming topless, young-looking girls that were, not dressed. We moved to another part of the house so that he wouldn't be exposed to what was going on.
In later years, Diddy implemented a curfew for children.
The kids have like an hour left. So get extra comfortable, but this thing turns into something that when y'all get older, y'all don't want to come to.
I think he's a monster.
This week, Houston-based lawyer Tony Busby says more than 120 people are coming forward with claims Diddy them.
Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old. We have one who was 15.
Did Diddy you in any way?
When you say I don't know the exact definition. but he put his arm around me in an uncomfortable way.
One attendee, Ta, shared disturbing details of her experience, breaking down as she described the events she witnessed. Her account suggests that Diddy's parties were not about celebration, but about creating environments where guests could be controlled and manipulated.
Oh, soon as I walk in, when I see that, I'm like, what the? I was afraid to walk through. But I was still kind of being nosy. Once I seen little people, I said, I got to get the out of here.
Okay, and that's probably the most explosive thing that you said in the Soft Underbelly interview, because a bunch of people doing drugs, who cares? But then you're like saying that there was basically underage people. Now, how underage are we talking? Like, obviously, like, teenagers?
I'm not trying to have nobody come looking for me.
Listen,
Little.
I'm just trying to, yeah, because you're saying little, but you're kind of making it sound like you might be talking about midgets. But it's hard to imagine all these
And I would have
people
said midgets then.
having this big freak off. It's hard to imagine that there's like kids involved in that. Nobody's gonna say anything. That's crazy. That's like hard for us to kind of imagine.
He's too rich. You gotta understand. I looked at it like this. I didn't look at it like, oh, I need to tell somebody. I looked at it like, this is his house. So whatever he do, what can I say? That's like somebody coming to my house saying, I don't like what you got going on in your house. They may not like it, but they can't do nothing about it.
But was this the moment when you were like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get the out of here? Or were you already
I was kind of confused because they were dressed up as the Harajuku Barbie. So I'm thinking like, oh, maybe it's a production going on.
I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming it sounds like some anime shit or something.
Yeah, some cute little dolls, like animation. Nicki Minaj talk a lot about the Harajuku Barbies with the bobs and the colorful, look like Asian.
Would you have been interested in participating in this crazy public if it wasn't for
No.
that? No, but it sounds like fun. Besides, until you mentioned that detail.
In the room,
okay,
maybe.
But you wouldn't get fucked up and let the prince bang you out on the couch at the.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And that's what let me know. Okay, this party ain't for me, because if they cool with that, I gotta be cool with that too.
Yeah.
So did you tell me to go in the house to see what I think about it? And then they did. So when I seen that, then I heard people screaming, but I'm like, okay, they fucked up.
Because that's the kind of thing that if you were even at that party, if you saw that and you continued, even if you didn't actually engage with these teeny boppers, you even being there really puts you in the box of like, oh, you're guilty by association.
Yeah, and guess what? That's why I got the there.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, once you see something, and even when I left, I got back, I'll get to that later, but I ended up calling the police, not on Diddy, on the Prince. Like 911 called, I've been, and I have pictures of that. I've been kidnapped by some
But were
Arabians.
you really kidnapped? You felt like you couldn't leave?
Well, I felt like I couldn't leave because...
At this specific party or in general?
In general from him, because it was a code on the gate. I only came back by hopping in the car, the car service. I'll tell you that in a minute.
Okay.
But I wanted it to be on record that if anything happens to me or while I'm around any of this, at least I called in. This is my paper trail. Because I know how y'all like to do black people.
Right.
And don't try to say, oh, well, did you even try to call for help? Yes, I did, motherfucker.
Right.
And you was there to protect and serve, and you didn't do a motherfucking thing, so don't say nothing to me now.
So what do you think Diddy's involvement probably was at these kind of parties? Do you think that he was banging people out in public at these parties by the end of the night, or is he so high level that he's taking some girls off into his little section?
Both, okay?
The most shocking revelation comes from an accuser who claims Diddy assaulted them as revenge for connecting him to Tupac's death. This accusation brings back long-standing rumors about Diddy's alleged involvement in Tupac's murder, a case still unaddressed by the FBI.
And so I need to give you a massive, flashing red warning here. What I'm about to say is quite disturbing. There's a lot of uncomfortable language. And if you are triggered or upset by and violent, etc., then this is definitely not the show for you tonight. The accuser is named Ashley Parham, and she has agreed to allow her name to be made public. Let's be real clear about that. She is going public with her name. She says that in February of 2018, she met a man named Shane Pierce at a bar, and that Shane FaceTimed Diddy outside on the sidewalk. apparently trying to impress her. But Ashley Parham says that she told both Shane and Diddy on FaceTime that she wasn't impressed. And this is important. She says she believed that Diddy had something to do with the of Tupac Shakur and said as much. Allegedly, Diddy warned her that she would pay for saying something like that. So let's just fast forward now to a month later, where she says this guy Shane invited her to come to his apartment. And the lawsuit says, quote, plaintiff and defendant Shane then began to watch a movie, and defendant Shane offered her a glass of water, which he retrieved and brought back to the plaintiff. A few minutes later, Ashley Parham says that P. Diddy showed up with an entourage, including his top aide, Christina Coram, an unnamed woman who is not a defendant in the suit, and 3 unnamed men, one of whom she says was Diddy's driver, and Parham says that that driver waited outside throughout the whole of what I'm about to tell you. Parham says that Diddy was antagonistic from the start and that he put a knife to her face. And now this is where I start reading directly from the complaint. Defendant Shane then partially undressed plaintiff, and then defendant Diddy removed the remainder of plaintiff's clothing, removing the knife from her face, and then retrieved a bottle of liquid from a large fanny pack. Defendant Diddy then squirted a bottle of liquid on plaintiff, which placed her in fear that she was being squirted with a chemical substance like acid. Plaintiff soon realized the substance was an oil/lubricant. Plaintiff was squirted with this liquid substance all over the entirety of her body. Defendant KK was then told by defendant Diddy to insert what looked like a syringe from sterile packaging into plaintiff's. Defendant KK did as told, and then told defendant Diddy that she was unable to use the IUD because it had prematurely been released from its packaging, and an IUD is a birth control device. Defendant Diddy, upset by this, took the so-called syringe from defendant KK and tried inserting it into plaintiff's instead. Defendant KK and Diddy began to argue as defendant KK continued to advise defendant Diddy that since the IUD had been prematurely released from its packaging, there was no way they could insert it into plaintiff's effectively. After some time, defendant Diddy heeded the advice of defendant KK and removed the syringe from plaintiff's and handed it to defendant KK. Defendants KK and Jane Doe then exited defendant Shane's residence, leaving the plaintiff alone with defendants Diddy, Shane, and Doe's number 1 and 2. Defendant Diddy then picked up a television remote that was near to plaintiff and violently inserted it into plaintiff's. Defendant Diddy, while violently plaintiff with a television remote, told plaintiff that her life was in his hands and that if he wanted, he could, quote, take her, and she would never be seen again. Plaintiff began hysterically crying from the threats by Diddy, along with the pain of being violently by defendant Diddy with the television remote, as well as the lingering pain from the ordeal with the IUD syringe insertion. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Shane to turn plaintiff on her stomach, seemingly tired of hearing plaintiff's blood-curdling cries. Defendant Shane then grabbed plaintiff by her abdomen and hips and turned plaintiff on her stomach. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Shane to put a pillow over her head because he didn't want to see her face or hear her cries, and instructed defendant Shane to plaintiff. Defendant Shane did as he was told by defendant Diddy and began to plaintiff. Defendant Diddy then violently plaintiff after defendant Shane. Defendant Doe number 2 then joined defendants Diddy and Shane, taking a turn plaintiff. Immediately after defendant number 2 plaintiff, he exited defendant Shane's residence.
With over 120 lawsuits now filed, the big question is, how deep does this go, and how many more victims are still out there? Will more people come forward to share their stories? Let us know your thoughts, and if you want more updates, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest revelations. Stay tuned.